bake a government made out of love? Anybody who's ever eaten food knows you want your food made with love. I just left the gas station, got myself a coffee, and they had the little powdered coffee machine thing there. Supposedly it was Mexican hot chocolate, so I filled the cup up about half full of Mexican hot chocolate to make my cup of coffee taste better, and it was alright. It still turned out kind of watery. So it got me thinking, like, wow, I was thankful. Thank you for coffee flavor powder, Lord. But how do we get, if someone would have made that out of love instead of just a machine that over diluted the powder with too much water, it could have turned out nice. All the ingredients were there to have nice. They had cups, they had powder, they had water, they had a clean facility, they had the lids, the jackets, they had everything needed to make a nice Mexican cocoa thing. And a machine cannot make you something with love, but the lady that I'm in love with could have, the human woman that I'm thinking about could have made me that cup of cocoa with love. And it's so much nicer, and it's 1,000 times better. And so we need to think about, how do you make a government out of love, made with love? And that's exactly what our founding fathers did. What happens is a dilution attack over time. The simple few laws we had have been diluted with many complex laws. And we don't need that. That's wrong. You don't want a dilution of power. You don't want a dilution of governance, a dilution of truth that guides us, a guiding light. And that's where we've ended up. And if you're going to design a government to govern people, which is what the government's governing, you want to give those people as much liberty and freedom as you can. So you design a government in such a way so as not to hamper their freedom and to fuck with it and attenuate it, reduce it, chafe it. And that's just kind of the beginning concepts of how you make a government with love. And I'd like to go through all kinds of pieces and flesh out and frame out all the ways that that's been done. And in American history, we've slightly, or a lot, I don't know, largely gotten away from a lot of that. But we were created in the beginning as a government for a free people, made with love, and it's a beautiful thing, and we need China and everybody else to emulate that. No human wants to live under a government without freedom and without love, and nobody wants their forms of government to not prioritize and emphasize the value of the human life that's being governed. When the government doesn't value the human life that it's governing, that is worst of the worst of the worst. And what's interesting and slightly paradoxical is that the more perfect a government becomes, the more noticed the small imperfections are, and the more problematic they are. So it's just kind of a problem with differences are noticed as you approach perfection. You know, you start noticing these things more and more and more. And, but that's because the art of fine-tuning things is just that. It's a journey towards perfection. And just because you're standing 10 trillion miles away from perfection instead of only 500,000 miles away from it, doesn't mean that the pursuing of it is any less significant. It doesn't, just because you're closer to perfection doesn't mean that making that gap towards it, even though it's a lesser distance, is any more easy. I remember seeing a clip of that show where there was that chemist named Heisenberg who made the pure drugs, and I remember seeing the scene where someone was analyzing it and saying, hey, I can make you 90% pure, but this stuff here we're testing is 96% pure. And that last 6% is a huge chasm. That is a huge difference to get from 90 to 96%. And I think people need to realize that. There's not enough instances of familiar knowledge in the common person's day-to-day life that helps them to appreciate that and realize that. But that's exactly how life is. That's how your Christian journey is. That's how the human journey towards their Creator is. The closer we get to perfection, the more difficult it becomes to traverse that remaining distance. And for those of us who know that we're supposed to traverse that gap and have the better ideas on how to traverse that gap, we get even more frustrated. We get even more passionate and loud and maybe grumpy. But it's because we know what we got to do, and we know the kind of work that's ahead of us, and we know the creativity and the fine-tuned precision and the masterful refinement and all that is yet to be done. And to harm people like me in that, or to slow our destinies down by not giving us the girlfriends or wives or sex lives and companionship that God promised us in the book of Genesis is evil, very evil. For me to have lived 42, almost 43 years without love and companionship and sex and inspiration and support is evil, very evil. It's harmed the human species. And I know I'm not the only one, and I know I won't be the last. But I hope I am the last, because this is a bad thing to have continue on. But it's a very evil, awful thing. And it is what it is. You know, it's a sad but true situation. So these are just some thoughts to think about. But we definitely want government that is masterfully crafted with love of the people in mind and built into every little decision and policy and procedure and decision tree juncture. My name's Jonathan West Colby, and that's my message.